Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, once again, hello, everybody. We welcome you inside Mia Margarita. It is Monday nights. We talk Bridgeport Indians football every Monday night on the John Cole Show. Live from Mia Margarita at Charles Point. Be with you until the top of the hour. The Indians 3-0 on the season after a 35-7 win over the Liberty Mountaineers back on Friday night in Clarksburg. Coming up, short week, Thursday night matchup against the defending Class AA state champion Polar Bears of Fairmont Senior at Wayne Jamison Field. Kickoff is slated for just past 7 o'clock, and the game will be also televised at WVMetroNews.com on the Metro News channel. And coming up over the next hour, we'll look back on the win over Liberty, and we'll also start our preview of the big matchup with the Polar Bears of Fairmont Senior. We're joined by John Cole, the head coach of the Bridgeport Indians, as we are every Monday night here on the John Cole Show, just because it makes sense. We've got to put your name on the title. You better be here. Good evening,
That's
Coach.
Right.
Good evening, Coach Cole. How are you?
How you doing, Travis? I'm hot.
Yeah, it's a little warm out there today. Who would have thought you guys are you're actually practicing in hotter temperatures in mid-September than you were in mid-August?
It's crazy. I know one thing. I've figured out, at least my age right now, I couldn't coach in the Southeast or Florida or Texas.
How about a dome?
I don't know.
Need a dome.
I don't know how they do it. On many different levels, I don't know how they do it.
Well, that's not the heat; it's the humidity.
That's
what they tell you.
And the turf, and it's beginning to become an issue.
Well, is it harder on the coaches than it is on the players? Hopefully,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I just I don't feel for them very often, but I do a little bit with this heat. I mean, it's not easy.
You know, we joke, but in all seriousness, it is a little bit of concern because I know typically you like it to be hot in August because you know the first few games of the season you're going to have to play in those type of conditions. Fortunately, we haven't. I mean, it's been warm, but it hasn't been sweltering.
Yeah.
And Thursdays, again, supposed to be warm, but just depending on how humid it is.
Right.
We'll see if cramps are an issue. But I'll say this.
I mean, everyone's got to deal with it, but it's
I'll say this, and I know you'll agree. Typically, we are most nights the better conditioned football team, and I think we've seen that already this season with other teams, players going down with cramps. We saw in Lewis County, our guys didn't have cramps.
Right, and I don't know. It seems like to me in the first half we get a little tired, especially towards halftime. But then in the second half, it seems like we're okay. Not great, but okay. But maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. It's tough. We moved the sled over to the grass because it's harder to move on grass than it is on the turf. So, when we played, we were on the grass practicing, and I could hear when they were hitting that sled, I could hear it rippling the dirt that is like concrete now. And so it's just as bad, I'm sure, if you don't have any grass, which by this time of the year, where the baseball field is now, it never had any grass on it. I mean, that it is like concrete. So you're battling wherever you're practicing, that's for sure, especially with no rain.
Yeah, it's been dry. I mean, lawns are I'm really worried about Tom Hilton because I don't know when the last time the guy was able to mow. And that's literally every day what he wants to do.
Yeah, he said he doesn't really have to go twice a week anymore, and I'm like, well, okay, that's good.
Well, I feel sorry.
He's got plenty of grass, believe me.
Sorry for his wife then, because that means he's in the house a lot more. All right. Well, we before we get into a climate change discussion here,
Yeah.
which I'd rather avoid, let's talk about the win on Friday night, 35-7. Going back to what we talked about on Monday, everything that we thought kind of came to pass. This was going to be a physical game,
Yeah.
and the team that executed the best was going to win the football game.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly you have to look at Bridgeport, and we executed pretty well.
We did. It was a hard-hitting game. It was. It's been very hard for us to simulate what our we've been facing an nine-man box, an odd front with four backers in there in between the tackles, and Liberty really squeezed them in there. It's hard for us to replicate what our kids see on Friday night. They came downhill from the beginning and really didn't stop the whole game. Now, there were times in the ball game where they slowed down a little bit, but I think everyone that was there would agree that the McIntyre kid's as good as advertised. We picked him up a few times on blitzes, but even his outside backers were good. I mean, and we had some schemes drawn up, and I think as coaches – and Tyler's the same way as I am. We draw things up. We think it should work. We know it can work. And if it doesn't, we get a little hard-headed. And I've always been like that, and I know he is too. And, they were coming downhill so fast that, what we schemed wasn't quite working. So, we were a little hard-headed. We wanted to make sure that we tried to get it to work, and then obviously, he started taking what the defense was giving us, and that was pretty apparent. And we could have done a little more of that. We could have done some other things, but we didn't feel we had to, so we didn't. But on the other side, the defense played very well, except for a few times there in the second quarter where they switched things up on us a little bit. And it was new, so we had a little bit of an issue with that. But after that, things went pretty smooth, and we got some different kids carrying the ball, and some good things happened. So I think we got a little better overall.
Yeah, you mentioned patience, and that was a virtue in that game. Opening series, 3 plays, don't get a first down, have to punt the football away, give them a first down, but then tighten it down a little bit, and we're able to force a punt. And then, lo and behold, Sam Romano gets his first crack at a punt return this season, and he had really had a pretty good game. I mean, I think I don't recall. I think it was 18 yards maybe on that punt return, 15-ish yards. But the hidden yardage there is how much did he save us the opposite way by fielding the ball and taking it up the field. And that kind of kick-started that next drive, and you were able to get the ball moving.
And he knew, it's hard to gauge these punters, and he's back there by himself. I mean, if we thought we had 2 guys we could put back there, you split the field a little bit, makes it a little easier. But, he let that one get away from him at Morgantown. He felt bad about that, and he did a good job and helped us out with several phases of the game. He isn't perfect. He's getting used to being at Bridgeport and doing what we do. But again, we're really happy to have him.
Yeah, 2 punt returns, 39 yards, had a long of 20. That was the one I was speaking of.
Yeah, we haven't been getting that. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Offensively, in that game, the other thing you got accomplished that we talked about last Monday was that you wanted to get Trey Pancake some more carries from the T position, the tailback position.
Right.
Not that Brian Henderson had been doing a poor job, but just 2 games, 55 carries in 2 games was too much for a guy with his frame and a guy that plays both ways.
It is, and they're not the same. I mean, they're different kids. They have different abilities and skills. So, why not take advantage of it? And at the same time, like you said, give him a little bit of a rest. And Brian, I think when we needed him to, block decent too. So he's a team player. He wants to win, and we're going to keep doing that. We're going to put our kids in the best position we can. based on the talent that we have.
Of course, the other thing is the sophomore Cam Cole unveiled, and you kind of went back to we were having flashbacks to AJ or to AC Caldera and Zach Spurlock. You know, we saw the Raptor play again that we ran a lot then.
Yeah. He's not quite there yet, but he definitely has that ability. Wish he was just a little bit thicker, but you know the time has come for him to start helping the team, and he showed that he can do that, and he's gifted. He's gifted on both sides of the ball, so probably going to see him a lot more on both sides.
Talk about the decision to use him in this game. Why was this Friday the right time?
Well, he's just you know, we sort of figured out obviously that he's a pretty good athlete, and he'd gotten enough reps in practice, and we just felt that it was time for him to, you know, like you said, showcase his talents a little bit, and that's the, you know, the gist of it. We've have trouble moving the ball at times, and he gives us another little dimension, a little better vision, I think, than Vandy as far as that goes. He sees things very quickly, doesn't stutter step very much at all. He just goes. So, you know, he's got to be out there some.
11 carries, 74 yards, had an 18-yard touchdown run on that Raptor play I spoke of that Bridgeport made a living off of during the state championship in 3-year run. When he's in there, what does that do for Tyler in the playbook in terms of the quarterback run plays? And conversely, what does it do on the other side of the ball to the defenses?
It keeps them true. Tyler can do a lot of different things with our backfield, and he's good at that. So we're more versatile. You know, when you're playing a 5-4 box and you've got those 4 guys dialed in on one way all the time, it does make it a little easier. And like I've said the past couple weeks, you know, you've got to be 9 on 9, and those nine things have to happen consistently. And with, you know, 16 and 17-year-old kids, that doesn't happen all the time. So this gives you another little dimension to make things a little tougher for the defense, I think.
What going forward? How do you use both of them? Is it just going to be a feel? Is it going to be, you know, the third series is Cole's? Have you had that discussion?
Not really. It'll come down to how we're moving. I think, I mean, Cam showed he can throw the ball a little bit too. So it'll depend on who we're playing, and still the progression of our line. I mean, we still have 4 new guys that in there on the offensive line that have to get better, and hopefully they will. You know, if they reach their potential and become somewhat dominant, then that makes the whole offense a lot easier. So we'll take it one game at a time. We'll see what defense we're facing, talent level we're looking at, and you know, Coach will make his mind up when he wants to use them. I'm just happy we have an option.
Yeah. Well, and I know the other thing you got to be happy about is that you know, Fairmont Senior, of course, this coming week, but every opponent from here on out at least has to spend some time each week, you know, preparing for 2 different types of quarterbacks. And you know, the other thing too, I thought, you know, Vandy came back in after Cole's, I think, 2 series in a row. Vandy was back in, and he ran the ball harder than we've seen him run.
It's healthy.
Yeah.
It's healthy for the offense. It's healthy for the team. I wish we had that at every position, but you know, that's not the case. Yep. But I wish we did.
All right, coming up, we'll talk a little more offense. I wanted to jump into the offensive line with you a little bit. We haven't talked about that unit's progression here over the last couple of weeks, and another a 200-plus yard rushing performance for Bridgeport on Friday night, 45 carries, 265, and 5 rushing touchdowns. So pretty good performance for the run game. So we'll talk about that. We'll jump into our Fairmont Senior preview coming up as well a little bit later on in the hour. And don't forget, every Monday night here at Mia Margarita, they've got our John Cole's favorite coal fire pizza. It is the West Virginia via San Francisco, and it is dine-in special, $10 every Monday night during the show from 7 until 9. Make sure you come by and be with us at Mia Margarita on Monday night for the coaches show, or before, after, or during the games on Friday nights. We'll take a break. John Cole Show continues from Mia Margarita after this on the home of the Indians. Well, we could have gotten, we could have maybe gotten. All right, welcome back. John Cole Show continues from Mia Margarita. We thank everybody for tuning in tonight, whether you're listening over the air on WAJR 103.3 locally on the Bridgeport Indians radio app worldwide, or watching us on Facebook Live. You can watch the show by giving a follow to the Bridgeport Indians radio network page on Facebook. And we're here Monday nights, only off on the off week for Bridgeport, and that's coming up a little bit later on in the season. Tribe 35 winner against Liberty Mountaineers in Clarksburg back on Friday night to hand Liberty their first loss of the season. Indians move to 3-0 on the campaign, and we get into kind of the gauntlet of the schedule coming up next with Fairmont Senior, and then the annual rivalry with Robert C. Byrd coming up in a couple of weeks. But John, back to your O-line, your guys. 3 games in with, as you mentioned, a rebuilt O-line, which is pretty standard around here. We
Yeah.
always have some graduation losses along that front line, but you started with two pretty good anchors there in
Oh,
Devin
yeah.
Hill and Michael Watkins, two returners. But kind of talk about, are you pleased 3 games in? How are those guys melding together?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm happy. I mean, I'm pleased with their effort. I mean, I think they mentally, it seems like they understand more. At least Michael and Devin, but at times through the first 3 games, they make mistakes too that are fairly easy things in my mind that they should know. But we need to get better. We need to execute better. I think at times I call it at times we have one hit syndrome. I call it. They think whenever if they come off the ball and they make contact, then that's going to be good enough, and that's never good enough. And that's a problem that several of them are having with all the linebackers, the 9-man boxes we're seeing. Those guys are hard to hook up with, and there's certain things and a certain mentality you have to have, just to stay hooked up with them and stay in their way so that our backs can get through there, and that hasn't happened very consistently throughout the first 3 games. So it's not all their fault. I think I've said before, sometimes it's the backs. But with these set of backs we have, we've got to do a better job. We've got to make things obvious, hopefully, for the backs so that they can get through there. And, at times we did that and have done that. And but it hasn't been consistent enough. I don't know. I think if we rush for 300 yards, and I told him last week, I'm like, that should be a goal. I think a lot of the teams we've had, when we get 300 yards rushing in a game, that's a pretty good chance and telltale that we've got a good chance to win the game. And we haven't quite done that yet. So, hopefully we'll keep plugging away and – that it'll cool off a little bit. I know with the bigger guys, that's always a thing that over the years it seems like they sort of come to life a little bit when things start to cool off. So I'm hoping that'll be the case. But really, Travis, it's the defenses we're facing. I mean, it's tough to do what we do consistently with the types of defenses we're seeing. And like I said, Coach Ferris and myself can scheme it out, but it's hard to execute, and things don't look like they do in practice.
So staying on blocks is the biggest improvement area you need to see. What about blocking the right people? Is that happening? Making the right calls and the right guys hitting the right people?
It seems like it is. Now, here again, it's things change a little bit, but based on what the backers do. But we've I don't know, we've been consistent. There has been some confusion, but I think when we look at the films, more often than not, we're doing the right thing.
All right, good answer. All right, so defensively, let's talk defense a little bit. 3 games, you've given up 21 points, 7 points per game through 3 contests, giving up 114 yards per game on the ground, and so far you've surrendered 49 yards per game through the air. And again, you preface all these numbers with you are giving up 49 yards per game, and people might think we've got the greatest pass defense in the history of football, but
we played 2 teams that don't throw the ball very much.
Yeah, but
that'll change Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday's a little. If you give up 49 yards passing on Thursday, then I think we're in pretty good shape. But
yeah,
back to Liberty, you did kind of have to like that a little bit because you got a little both from them.
We did.
You got power run that you wanted to see, and then you also got spread, and they really tested us underneath, tackling in space, and that was something that we kind of struggled against Morgantown.
Yes, and it's going to be a big deal Thursday night because there's the most talented team we've seen all year. We're going to see Thursday, especially offensively. So, I think we did. We were in position. We should have had a couple of interceptions. I mean, that definitely should have happened, and that was good to see. I mean, at least those guys are in the right spots, and give credit to AJ. He came up with something that we didn't think we'd see, and that quarterback, the Leggett, threw some good balls. I mean, they were right on the money. Those kids made some nice catches, and unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of pressure. That's the other thing that was a little disappointing. I thought with the line we were going up against when that did happen that we would get some pressure. And there again, that was towards the end of the first half. And, when teams start doing that, it's hard to pass rush consistently. And it does wear you out a little bit. But that's why I thought towards the end of the first half we were – maybe a little bit gassed or in a fog or whatever, but they did what they had to do when they got closer to the goal line, and that was really good to see.
Yeah, huge defensive stand.
Yeah, it was. Could have been a one-score game there at halftime.
Yeah, and they get the ball to start the third quarter, so that was huge.
Yep.
First and goal at the 2, and they go out on downs on a fourth down when Trey Pancake got some pressure on the quarterback in the backfield. All right, so same question for your defensive line.
Okay.
How would you assess their performance so far through 3 games? I know you're still kind of juggling, looking for a permanent rotation, particularly at the ends.
It is, and they're better. I mean, Michael Watkins is better this year. Devin Hill's done a good job up to this point. I didn't think he had his greatest game Friday night, but he's done a real good job. And then J.R. Coburn comes in and spells both of those, and he's woken up a little bit. But he's got a lot on his plate. He's starting a guard for us, and his mind's been filled with blocking assignments, and he's had some issues with it. But he's hanging in there. He realizes that he wasn't really at the same point he was last year playing defense, and I think he's getting out of that now. So I'm happy with him, and like I said, we've got 3 or 4, maybe 5 guys that we're looking at defensive end, and that's a luxury, and probably going to see may see some different guys in there Thursday.
Linebackers, your top tacklers are your linebackers this season,
right.
and that stands to reason. But,
that's the way it should be.
Yep. But on top of that, even though they're supposed to do the job, Carson Winkie has been about as good as you can be in the first 3 games of the season. Elijah Smith has played a good football for you as well, and J.D. Love currently is your 3rd leading tackler.
Yeah, he is. He's done a good job, and Pancake's a lot better than I think last year. Carson Winkie too. I mean, they just seemed like they were on their heels for whatever reason. Carson's stronger. I mean, he's faster. He's stronger. Trey's playing much more aggressive. And this is his 3rd year playing linebacker, so he should, and he is. Not perfect, neither one of them all the time, but they're better. And JD, just wish he could have had a little more experience. If he'd had a little more experience last year, he really would have been a bright spot, and he is a bright spot. But I think he would have been a little better. But he got nicked up and missed out on some experience. But he lifts till the end of February, and then he's a baseball player. And that takes up a good bit of his time there till June. And but we always knew that he could play, and he's playing on both sides of the ball, and he's doing a good job for us, and we'll continue to get better.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, final word on Liberty. 35-7 Bridgeport wins, but I just wanted to echo the same thing we talked about last Monday night. And that's
Okay.
what a job that AJ's doing with that program.
Oh
You
yeah.
see him again. It's a good football team. They're gonna, and it's good for us
If
because they'll give us points, but they're gonna win some games.
Yeah, and I'm happy for him. He deserves it. Uh, those kids deserve it. He works their tail off, and I think he had a center out, and the kid that was in there did an okay job. I mean, he's going up against Winky most of the time. We changed defenses a little bit most of the time. He was going up against Winky, and I think he had another backup that was hurt and had to throw another guy in there. They just they do the little things that are needed to be competitive, and that's just come off the ball on both sides of it and play physical and play hard. And that's what he's getting them to do. And believe me, getting the kids to play hard is over half the battle. Getting them to go full speed is a big thing. And he's doing that. I think I didn't talk to him. I meant to get a hold of him. If he's healthy and stays healthy, he'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And that will help just help Bridgeport with those bonus points
Right.
certainly down the stretch. So that's good news. All right, we come back. We'll turn our attention. We'll focus in on the Polar Bears of Fairmont Senior. Fairmont defending Class AA state champions, and they'll be in town on Thursday night to take on the Bridgeport Indians at 7 o'clock. We'll take a break. John Cole's show continues from Mia Margarita at Charles Point here every Monday night. You can check him out online at miamargarita.com, also on Facebook at Mia Margarita Coal Fire Pizzeria. John Cole's show continues after this timeout on the home of the Indians. 2 touchdowns for Trey Pancake, a part of that 35-7 win over the Liberty Mountaineers back on Thursday nights. Now next up for Bridgeport, it's the annual meeting with the Polar Bears of Fairmont Senior. They come in 3-0 on the season, and Fairmont really yet to be tested on the year. They rolled past Robert C. Byrd in their season opener. Their latest victory was a 39-6 win over North Marion. That's right, Buchanan in between there as well. They got Byrd later in the season. And it was Kaiser.
Correct.
That, of course, played Byrd in week number 1. But, Johnny, you looked at this team last year. They won the state championship. They had just a loaded football team a year ago, beat Bluefield at Wheeling Island Stadium, and you thought, well, you know what, they got some kids back, but they're going to lose their quarterback. Connor Neal, the Kennedy Award winner, graduated and took his talents to Fairmont State. He's redshirting this season. So you thought, Fairmont Senior won't be as good. Well, then here comes along Gage Michael, who, by the way, is on pace to statistically have a better year last year than Connor Neal. And I know you put the film on, and you're just you're amazed. This kid, who last year was a wide receiver, is now a great quarterback.
That's all true, Travis. But again, the thing that concerns our coaching staff the most is they've got 4 linemen back. That's what these athletes are great, and believe me, the more athletes, the better. But if they don't have the guys in front of them on both sides, then they're not as good. And this is the case. Fairmont, and we knew whoever they had, they were going to be good again this year because you've got a Division I recruit that's going to be a good D1 player back that just is one of the best I've seen. Frazier's really good. You can't fool him. You can't trick him. I mean, he's really tough to deal with. And there's, like I said, 4 of them are back, and they're creating things for their offense. But going back to the quarterback, he's very good. He's different than Connor Neal was. He likes to throw that deep ball, and they're having success doing it, and that gives you a lot of yards. But his legs are what's scary. Our staff, especially with Coach King, I mean, it is a nightmare. And we've said this over the years. I'm sure who's ever been coaching here, that's a big deal. When you have to worry about a running quarterback, a guy that has good wheels, it stresses your defense immensely, and that's what we're dealing with. And for him to be at this level, the 3rd game of the year, and doing what he's doing at quarterback is really hard for me to believe. I mean, that just tells you what kind of an athlete he is, because it's uncommon.
Yeah, and a junior, so that's good news. So with Zach Frazier, how do you deal with him? I mean, you just can't say, well, we can't block him.
Well,
I mean, you got to try to do something, right?
Last year, this year rather, we're stronger. I mean, we're stronger across the board. And that's playing out, especially, I think, on our defense. The reason that we're a little better on defense to this point is because of the offseason that the kids had. So we're a stronger football team, and that's the only way that you deal with that guy. So hopefully, we'll stick our nose in there consistently for 4 quarters, and that's really all you can do. He's good, but he's not superhuman. The heat and the pounding hopefully will take a toll, and they may have to take him out a little bit. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, sometimes we'll run at him, sometimes we won't. That's just the way it is. But you've got to be able to take him on along with the rest of them, and that's going to be the telltale. and it certainly was apparently, very apparent last year. I mean, they were stronger up front on both sides of the line than we were.
Yeah.
We had issues. We had a bunch of other issues, tackling in space and not being able to run the ball and all that. But it's going to be won or lost up there up front, and hopefully we're a little better this year.
Well, I mean, certainly you don't have to be Newt Rockne to figure out that our best defense on Thursday nights are offense. If we can possess the football, churn out first downs, and the one thing that we can ill afford are 3 and outs.
Oh yeah,
can't have a lot of those.
Yeah, and that's what we had last year, and to this point we've been a little inconsistent doing that. So we're gonna do everything that we can do to keep our offense on the field, and hopefully that's being able to do it, churning it out like we usually do. But if we can't do that, then we're going to try and do everything we can do to keep them out there. We've got a little more confidence in our defense this year, but they've got a tall task. I mean, it's going to be really, really tough to keep this offense and this quarterback in check. But that's why Fairmont's good. That's why they're the state champions, and they're the state champions until someone beats them. So that's what we're going to try and do.
Talked about their passing game. How is their running game different than from what we saw a year ago? They've got a different type of personnel. Last year we saw a guy at tailback that had never played tailback before. He was a tight end.
Yes, and the Gilbert kid last year was really good, but he didn't play in our game. Mm-hmm. So they take a kid that he actually played defensive line for them against us, and put him at running back, and he did really, really well. So I think this year it's around Michael. I mean, they run a lot of quarterback ISO, run some sweep with him. The Kukowski, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
Kowalski.
Mm-hmm. He was a lineman last year. He's a fullback now, so they'll give him the ball some. He's a big, strong kid, running against that, behind that line. And they've got a quick boy, 21.
Cottingham.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have a ton of carries, but they're not afraid to run their quarterback, and I wouldn't either. I mean, he's got great vision. He's a really good athlete. But again, those guys up front, it makes life a lot easier for them. Plus, they've got you spread out. Mm-hmm. So, and they've got athletes out there. So you're spread out, and you've got to deal with that line stopping that run. That's what we have to do. I mean, their passing game is very dangerous, but and it's like a broken record all the time we play teams like this. But if they can do both, it's a nightmare, and that's sort of what happened last year.
The amazing thing is, you look at this, the history of this series, high school football, and its cyclical nature. I mean, it is very cyclical outside of a handful of programs. We're just very fortunate that we're in one of those handful of programs. As good as Fairmont Senior has been recently, there was a span there. They couldn't beat us.
No.
I mean, or the wins were few and far between.
Oh, yeah.
And now all of a sudden, the roles reversed a little bit, and they're, kind of on that crest of that wave of talent right now. And we'll see if it, we'll see if it continues to play out this way over the next couple of years. I know if you look back down the road here to freshmen and the youth, and right on down the feeder systems, Bridgeport's beating Fairmont all over the place in those divisions. But right now they're pretty good. I mean, they're in a pretty good talent role right here.
Yeah, and you have to have talent. I mean, that's the bottom line. You have to have good kids, and you have to have talent, but you can't look very much past middle school. I mean, what defines these kids and what kind of players and what kind of athletes they are in our sport is off-season training. Yeah. And they've been really, really good at that. And, Coach Bardick and his staff, they are very well coached. So, those kids have to be strong. It seems like they have and have had athletes. You throw in there a big, strong, well-coached, disciplined line. That there's no secret
Yep.
to what happens. So, as long as they're doing that, they're going to be tough.
Yep. Well, I mean, all you can do is let it roll and
That's right.
find out where we stand coming up on Thursday night. And we'll certainly do that. But hey, before I let you go, be remiss.
Oh, yeah.
Awkward transition,
Yeah.
certainly. But I know you and the program want to pass along our deepest condolences to Roane County High School and their program, a team that we played here in the last handful of seasons in the playoffs for the tragic loss of Alex Miller, their player that passed away on Friday night after collapsing on the field. I know that a lot of the area schools, I know Bridgeport student body is doing the same tomorrow to wear the maroon in his honor. And
Right.
I know the league also, the Big Ten is working on tribute on the
Getting
helmets.
stickers, yeah.
But just, I mean, every coach and every parent's worst nightmare.
It is, and you hear about it. Unfortunately, every year it happens, but this one's obviously in our state and fairly close to home, and it just it means more. It affects you in a different way the closer it is, and just can't imagine that. It's a really, really bad situation, but there's a lot of people thinking of them, praying for them, doing all kinds of things to lessen that burden a little bit, and you just feel for that team. It's going to be really rough.
Yeah, certainly. All right, Coach. Good luck Thursday. Thanks
All right,
so much.
thank you.
John Cole, head coach of the Bridgeport Indians. We'll take a break. We come back. We will set up our broadcast plans for Thursday night for the Polar Bears and Bridgeport. That is coming up. Live from Mia Margarita at Charles Point, you're listening to the John Cole Show on the home of the Indians. Hey, Kenny. I've got another break left, right? Take it out of my ear. I can't hear you. Okay, 2.5. All right, well, I'll end early here. Just play the close and then play the break. Okay, thanks. Exciting touchdown for Cam Cole, one he won't soon forget. His first in a Bridgeport uniform, a part of the 35-7 win for the Indians back on Friday nights. And as we talked about, Thursday night, special Thursday night lights as the Polar Bears of Fairmont Senior will be in town. A game again available at WVMetroNews.com, a full HD broadcast. Kyle Wiggs and Joe Percato will have the television call. Chris George and myself will be on the radio. So if you watch the game, we invite you to turn down the TV sound and listen to the Indians Radio Network and our call of Fairmont Senior and Bridgeport. This will be 1 versus 3 in the Metro News Power Poll from WVMetroNews.com coming up on Thursday night as the Indians and Polar Bears do battle once again at Wayne Jamison Field. 6:30 airtime at the Quality Machine Indians warm-up. Kickoff is slated for just past 7 o'clock. And don't forget, we invite you to join us if you can't be there in person on the air, WHAR 103.3, or you can listen anywhere on the Bridgeport Indians radio app. Download the app for free just by clicking on Bridgeport Sports Radio in the App Store or Google Marketplace. Also a reminder about Bridgeport Indians Radio 24/7 on the app. Anytime, if you're at work, you want to listen to a past Bridgeport game, just click the live stream right on the app. There's always a game or coach's show from the past playing on there 24/7. Of course, all of our game broadcasts are also archived, including this show, on demand, and that's available through the Bridgeport Indians website at bridgeportindiansfootball.com. We're back with you again next Monday night from Mia Margarita at Charles Point for another hour of Indians football talk on the John Cole Show. This is Travis Jones thanking you for listening and watching to the John Cole Show on the home of the Indians.